The first time I saw Alex Chin was back in college. Tall and lean, with smooth, pale skin and features that still held a touch of youthful innocence. He looked almost identical to Julian Wells, the golden boy of the Wells family, yet somehow you could tell them apart instantly. Harrison Vance absolutely adored that face. But this young man wasn't Julian. Julian Wells was the cherished son, an angel untainted by the world, a delicate flower nurtured in a greenhouse, someone to be cultivated and protected. Alex Chin was different, taking money he shouldn't have, dreaming dreams beyond his station. An illegitimate son, thinking he could grab a piece of Apex Corp? Ridiculous. Making him face reality early would be a public service. Really? But Harrison didn't want to do that just yet. He loved that face too much. Someone like you won't make it into the upper echelons without leveraging what you have, he'd said. I like you. Perhaps we could make a deal. You can have anything you want. All I want is you. He couldn't wait to see this young man break down beneath him, weeping. It would be a beautiful sight, but he couldn't rush it. He had to wait slowly. Harrison waited for 2 weeks, precisely so that Alex Chun would come to him, pretending it was his own choice, offering himself up willingly. Under Harrison's mocking gaze, my hands trembled as I undid the buttons of my shirt, like unwrapping a costly, fragile gift. I knew I was walking into an abyss, but there was no turning back now. 2 weeks earlier, Harrison Vance had practically handed me a prime piece of real estate. I couldn't fathom why the shrewd Harrison Vance would suddenly back out at the last moment of the bidding war. Since Mr. Chun wants this land so badly, I'll do him the favor. Be the good guy for once, he'd announced. I never associated Harrison Vance with the words good guy, but the documents my assistant provided checked out perfectly. The plot was almost too good to be true. There was an old youth center on it, but it was dilapidated. Relocating it should have been straightforward. There was no logical reason for Harrison to let this juicy prize slip through his fingers and into mine. Sometimes you have to give your rivals a little breathing room. It fosters healthy competition. I look forward to seeing what Mr. Chen accomplishes, Harrison had murmured close to my ear as he left, his tone disturbingly intimate, stirring up unpleasant memories. I had a bad feeling about it all. Later, I found out exactly what was wrong. My plan was to build a high-end shopping mall, Skyview Plaza, on that land. The architectural designs were commissioned from a world-renowned firm, and leasing negotiations were well underway. Then, out of nowhere, officials showed up, waving evidence that the deed was still held by the Youth Center's trust. Apex Corp had no legal right to begin construction. Adding insult to injury, the situation attracted a swarm of reporters, hounding me, demanding to know why I was so heartless as to try and take away the only home these underprivileged kids had. The mall project collapsed. Back at the office, the loss report was already on my desk, $50 million. Eleanor Croft, the matriarch of the family that controlled Apex, slammed the report onto my face. She told me if I didn't recoup the losses within a month, I could pack my bags and get the hell out of Apex Corp. As the head of the Croft family, Eleanor allowing an illegitimate son like me into the company was already considered an act of extreme generosity. Never mind that she hadn't given me a single share of stock but had thrown me into a VP position. Never mind that she wouldn't even let me take the family name. Never mind that I wasn't allowed to set foot in the main family estate unless specifically invited. If Eleanor Croft's own son wasn't severely autistic, a quiet boy lost in his own world, would she ever have let the son of her husband's mistress spend her money on a top-tier U.S. education, only to bring him back to help manage her company? That day, I tore the giant promotional poster for Skyview Plaza to shreds, then sat amidst the wreckage, burying my face in my hands. Walking on thin ice every day was exhausting. At least now, the ice had finally, completely shattered. Can we not do this in the study? As I stripped off my clothes, I managed to ask, my voice rough with shame. It sounded surprisingly appealing, that raw edge in my voice. Harrison just chuckled softly and pushed me down onto the desk. As waves of unfamiliar pain washed over me, my consciousness blurred through a steady stream of tears I couldn't stop. In that moment, I felt like giving in. Mr. Vance, you were right. This is the only way I can survive in that place. I don't just want the 50 million. I want more. Hearing my mumbled words, Harrison paused. He wasn't surprised. People are greedy, aren't they? After all, even he had to admit this body was more delicious than he'd anticipated. I rarely thought about the past. To me, the past was something to be discarded like worn-out shoes. It served no purpose except to highlight how insignificant I was. Growing up, I was always exceptional. Top grades, good at sports, and crucially, I had the looks. Girls were always writing me letters, secretly taking photos of me to sell, blushing as they stood before me confessing crushes. Truthfully, the grades and sports didn't matter much. They were just bonus points. The girls were captivated by my face alone. Talent is only meaningful when it's needed. If that's the case, then good looks are a kind of talent too. But beyond that, I had nothing. I only knew how to spend money, not make it. I had to care for my sick mother. We lived in a cramped 200-square-foot apartment. I wouldn't have survived without part-time jobs and odd gigs. Nobody wanted to be friends with someone like that. No girl, once she found out the reality, wanted to stay stay with me. I studied relentlessly, desperately trying to improve my life, but just like Harrison Vance said, some things can't be obtained no matter how hard you try. The day after my mother passed away, someone claiming to be from my father's family showed up at my door, telling me it was time to be acknowledged. How naive I was. How could they have found me so precisely the day after my mother died? How could my father, whom I'd never met, suddenly take such an interest in his illegitimate son? I never met my father. Instead, I met Eleanor Croft. She presented me with an agreement and told me to sign it. Go to a top university, get a degree. If my performance was outstanding enough, I could come back and take over managing the company. It was an incredible offer, dropping from the sky, leaving me dizzy. I agreed almost without thinking. Vice President of Apex Corp, a member of the Croft family circle. Titles I'd never dreamed of seemed to be desperately throwing themselves at me. I threw myself into my studies, forced myself to network, did countless things I was never good at before. Eleanor did make me a VP, but she never let me take the family name, and I still never met my father. He had no real power anymore. The president and majority shareholder of Apex Corp was Eleanor Croft, and Eleanor Croft had an autistic son. He looked a lot like me, but his fate was entirely different. Raised in a mansion, born a young master, needing to do nothing yet provided for, happy and secure. Someone like you won't make it into the upper echelons without leveraging what you have, Harrison Vance had said.